It is Tuesday night, East Lansing, Michigan. It is Tuesday, right? Something like that. Let me check my calendar. It's August 16th. Yeah, it's Tuesday night in East Lansing, Michigan. Come on in, gather around, gather around, gather around. I got my date right. It is Tuesday. Next week, there's practice. This week, scrimmage on Friday. Next week, there's practice. The week after that, game week, prep week, Michigan State, Western Michigan, Friday night, September 2nd, I believe it is, Spartan Stadium, opening up the 2022 college football season, counting it down. You can find all your coverage of Michigan State training camp, August camp, all the coverage over at SpartanMag.com. My name is Jim Comparoni, publisher, SpartanMag.com. Been the publisher of SpartanMag.com and previously Spartan Magazine going all the way back to 1993, back in the olden days. Many of you were subscribers going back that long, and we certainly appreciate the loyalty you've had to Spartan Mag and the Spartan Mag brand, the Spartan Magazine news organization over the years. We truly appreciate all the support and all the new maggers that we get. All right, so give us a thumbs up over here and give us subscribe to the channel. Need that. That helps a lot with algorithms, helps us get out the word about Spartan Magazine, SpartanMag.com, and our news organization. It helps give us a lot of support so that we can continue to bring you that kind of coverage that you've learned to trust over the years. Credible information covering your Michigan State Spartans. Football, basketball, recruiting, a little bit of hockey, and other things. So, my name is Jim Comparoni. If you don't know what this nonsense is, we do this every week or so. Want to do it a little bit more frequently as the season gets closer. And we take questions from the masses. Feel free to put questions over in the chat area. Also, I've picked out some questions. Actually, all the questions were posted over at the Underground Bunker message board. Today, earlier this afternoon, I announced we would be having a Spartan Mag Live tonight. I invited Spartan Mag subscribers over at SpartanMag.com to post questions. We will be fielding those questions tonight. If you're so inclined, go over to SpartanMag.com, check out our coverage. A lot of free content over there covering Michigan State's August camp. SpartanMag.com, go check it out. We'd love for you to become a subscriber over at SpartanMag.com. So we got questions over here. Let's get right to it. Question number one from Joe from Northville. He says, what kind of expectations does the Michigan State staff have for the rest of the 2023 recruiting class? Question says, do they seem pretty satisfied with the class so far? Let me check real quick, make sure that the audio is working. Yep, no complaints. Looks like it's going okay. Question is, do they seem pretty satisfied with the class they have so far? And will they only look to add a few key players that we know that they're still recruiting? Or do we feel that there will be another wave of offers when the season starts? Should we expect the class to be a full 25? They're at 17 right now. I'm expecting, 21 or more, depending on if there's some attrition once the season starts. As you know, you get into the season and you get 2 or 3 or 4 guys possibly that might enter the portal before playing 4 games to preserve a redshirt year. When that happens, that opens up more slots. It's conceivable they could go all the way to 25. I'm thinking maybe 21, 22, something like that. They like to keep that number a little bit quiet just so that their competition doesn't know how much room they have. But a new wave of offers, it's possible once more video comes out of senior season video. But off to a pretty good start right now. 17 commitments, ranked number 13 in the country in terms of star average at Rivals.com, number 25 overall. Once they get to 20 commitments, that helps with the formulas. Once they get to 20 commitments, I think that they will they'll jump up into the top 20 overall in terms of points, maybe up toward 15 if they get a couple more key ones down the stretch. But right now, number 13 in terms of star average and looking pretty good. Question number 2, Chris from Henderson, Nevada. He says, Mel Tucker mentioned every running back during Mel Tucker's press conference earlier in the week except for Davion Prim in his press conference. Has Prim regressed from his spring surge? Have others surged past him? Or have you heard of any injury? Good question. And you're right. And that's why a lot of times coaches, unfortunately, they kind of refrain from listing players that do well because they don't want to forget anybody. That leads to questions like this. I've watched a little bit of practice, it's been hard to find the running backs when we've had limited time out there. And a lot of times their drills are less consequential than other drills. I'm more likely to watch quarterbacks, wide receivers, or linemen getting off blocks, safeties, defensive backs taking on blocks, providing coverage, that type of stuff, rather than running backs who usually are just doing cones and taking no contact. Sometimes we'll get a chance to see running backs work on pass protection. That's always kind of interesting. Long story short, I've not zeroed in on the running backs a whole lot. Had some video of running backs in one of the videos earlier this week, just for a moment, as they were taking handoffs and making one cut and running. And no, Prim was not out there. We're not really supposed to report who's out there and who's not out there. But if you watched the video, you may have seen that he wasn't out there. I've not heard anything about injuries. And if I did, we're not supposed to report those. If we get in the habit of reporting every time somebody's hurt, pretty soon we will have zero access to covering the practices. So that's just kind of the way it is. We can go out there and take a look at players that we think and gain observations based on what we see, and provide some video on the internet or B-roll for the TV, the local TV, and throughout the state of Michigan, actually, the ones that are there. But Channel 6 and Channel 10 in Lansing are there quite a bit. They do a great job. But, we can't really do roll calls in terms of saying, this guy wasn't there, this guy wasn't there. If we start doing that, then there'll be no access. So you can consider that censorship, but that's the way a lot of programs do it. So even if I knew that Prim were injured, I might have heard it from somebody who told me that you can't say this, but I hear he's injured. Well, I'll tell you right now, I've not heard that. But if I had heard it, we're talking about a fifth-string running back, probably not someone who's going to figure into the playing group early. But you're right. Players and coaches did give him a lot of compliments from spring practice. Davion Prim, redshirt freshman. A lot of compliments. Kept happening over and over. So it's a good question, and don't really know the answer right now. I doubt it'll have much of an impact on this team this year, but in terms of a guy that all of a sudden seemed to have a long-term possibilities, more so than I would have thought last fall, it's reason to pause. Just a little bit. Good question. No answers right now. We'll wait to see what happens against Western Michigan and who dresses for that game and whether or not he's on the field. I don't think we're going to have an open practice this year like we did last August, unfortunately, because it was great when the public was at that practice last year at the stadium. Question number 3 from Sherlock H. out of Sterling Heights. He says, Jim, I just checked the Minnesota board. 18 commitments for the Gophers. All of them are 3 stars except for 1 2 stars. Have you heard anything about PJ Fleck having trouble in his recruiting? Answer, no, but he's feeling elite. Feeling elite today. But Minnesota's never recruited well. That's kind of a tough sell. Question number 4. TD Play from Metro Detroit asks, Hampton Fay to safety? Any legs to this rumor? Any insight on quarterback number 2 yet? There were some rumors about that. I've not seen it with my own eyes. And they're exacerbated a little bit by some of the film showing quarterbacks working. And Hampton Fay was not among them, but he was working with tight ends at the time. So when things like this happen, we were at practice on Monday, and I didn't go looking for him. Actually, we were not allowed to watch practice this week. It was the week before that. So, I don't know. Have not heard that. Michigan State with 4 pretty good scholarship quarterbacks right now. Everybody knows the top one. And then you've got Noah Kim in there, Hampton Fay's in there, Caton Hauser, the true freshman. Noah Kim looks like, just reading between the lines and hearing what's going on, looks like he's probably the number 2 quarterback right now. Just a hunch and somewhat of an observation, but they're trying to keep that quiet as well. Hampton Fay's a guy that came in at 6'5" with a lot of athletic ability, can really run, was a wide receiver earlier in his career in high school. Maybe a little bit unpolished in terms of his throwing ability, even as a high school senior. Had further to go in terms of becoming college ready than I think Hauser does or Kim does, even though Kim had some injury issues in his high school career as a junior. Not the thickest guy, but maybe more of a pure passer than Hampton Fay was in high school. I compared Hampton Fay to Connor Cook a little bit because Connor Cook, when he came to Michigan State, was not refined either, but he was a big athletic guy, turned into a great winning quarterback. Michigan State, I think, did well to hold on to all 4 scholarship quarterbacks coming out of the spring. That's hard to do in this day and age of the transfer portal. A lot of transfers all over the country, especially the quarterback position. I would have thought, heading into the spring, that after spring, one of those guys, Kim or Fay, might look for greener pastures, so to speak. Didn't happen. So they've kept their interest. They've kept them in the program. Can things change once they start preparing for Western Michigan and somebody starts to realize they're the number 4 quarterback? If it's Hauser, no, because he's a true freshman. If Hampton Fay sees that he's a number 4 quarterback, would I be shocked if he looked around? No, I wouldn't be shocked. But I don't know if that's the case right now. With his frame and athleticism, he would have the capacity to change positions potentially. I've not heard anything from him. These are just internet rumors, and Hampton Fay and your family, I apologize if these are just crazy rumors that we're talking about with no legs to them at all. I've not heard anything from the inside that there's anything going on there, but sometimes things happen. I've not heard anything like that, but I'll just say that Hampton Fay, if he transfers out or looks to change positions at some point, he's got a frame that I think he would have the capacity to be a good tight end at some point. But hey, that's way down the road. The guy's just a redshirt freshman. So, unique athlete with that size and the speed, though. And when quarterbacks do change position, sometimes tight end is a good position for them, and he would be someone that could do that. But putting the cart way ahead of the horse on that one. I've not heard anything there. Question number 5, Charles from Alexandria, Virginia. He asks, which young offensive lineman are you hearing the most buzz about from Kapilovic and the other coaches? No one really stands out. It's not like I'm hearing, man, this Mandrich kid looks good. This guy, Jack Conklin, you watch out. I'm not hearing anything like that. I'm hearing things continue to be on schedule with Spencer Brown, which is important at right tackle. That's a guy that started one game. They needed to come around. He's got some ability. They feel pretty good about that. Played well against Pittsburgh, as we've said a number of times, in the Chick-fil-A Bowl. So things are solid, functional there. Just my own observations and a little bit of scuttlebutt here and there. Brandon Baldwin's getting some work there at left tackle. Athletic. He's got some size to him. He's never been on the field, but he's starting to look like he's somebody that can handle it. And they need him to be able to handle it because they need they're lacking depth at left tackle. And with Jarrett Horst, trying to get him to go through a full 12-game schedule, that's going to be a question mark. So having Brandon Baldwin available would be important. Matt Carrick is getting some work. Kapilovic was talking about him being on a pitch count because he was injured last year. And if you look at some of the videos that get released and so forth, and some of the things that we've seen in practice, he's getting work there, legit work there at right guard. There's some rust. They all said there was a lot of rust there. But I continue to say that Matt Carrick last year, when he was a second-string right guard behind Kevin Jarvis, played the best football of his career at that point. And I'm talking about Matt Carrick, who had to start due to emergencies in 2019 and 2020. Then Jarvis came back from injury, started in 2021. Carrick became a second stringer. Limited role, maybe 15 snaps a game, maybe 20. And I thought that he was playing good football. So Carrick being back is a good sign for now. All systems are go with him. More offensive line questions. Question number 6, Spefton from East Lansing. He says Michigan State has a lot of young offensive linemen, and I'm curious as to which of them have the best chance of maturing into stalwarts of the future. Have the coaches dropped any hints, or do you have any hunches based on observations? Good question. Kapilovic is really good with information, but I have to say, in terms of developmental things, he's a little bit close to the vest. Maybe as time goes on, we'll get some more from him, but going back all the way back to like Jeff Stoutland. Stoutland was really good at leveling with us or with me and saying, hey, this guy looks good. This guy's a little bit step behind. This guy's going to be real good if whatever. And then when guys like Kenny Shane became good late in their career, or Peter Clifford, it wasn't a big shock to myself or our readers because Stoutland had done a pretty good job priming us on that information, but keeping it real. Like, hey, not making people out to be the next Orlando Pace. Might not be great right now, but he's going to be good at this point. And this guy's got a lot of strength. He's got to build into it. With Kapilovic, he talks about, a lot of players needing to gain a level of consistency. He's a real good quote, but I think he tries to keep things quiet a little bit, which I respect, not wanting to give out scouting information about strengths and weaknesses, which I understand. So to answer your question, I know that, they felt pretty good about Vandermark and how he was coming along. I had a little minor injury in the spring, which knocked him off the rails a little bit, but he's back out there now. Redshirt freshman. They feel good about him as an offensive guard. But when he talks about those guys and a lot of the starters, he just wants consistency. And he keeps using that word. Will that always be the case with Kapilovic? Will he always talk about players like that and be a little bit conservative about giving out hints and so forth? Maybe so, and that's his prerogative. I respect that. But right now, I can't sit here and tell you that they're talking about, like we used to hear with Peter Clifford and Kenny Shane before they became good players. Or even Jim Bowman going back a long time ago about Jason Strayhorn saying, I like this kid Strayhorn. What do you like about him, Coach? He's strong. He said about Strayhorn. Strayhorn got on the field like 3 years later, became all Big Ten, but you were hearing some of those positives early on. Heard a little bit about Vandermark, but a lot of it's pretty close to the vest. I have been hearing that through some other circles and so forth, and I'm hearing some good things about Ethan Boyd, redshirt freshman, right tackle from East Lansing, a guy that Michigan State was wise to get in on soon after Mel Tucker was hired. Good athlete, good frame, and then he grew another 1.5 inches, and he's on pace to look pretty good there at right tackle. But as far as true freshmen, you have Brocious out there, Braden Miller, Big Dooley Phillips, Ashton Lepo. They feel good about all those guys. Lepo's looking athletic. They figured Braden Miller would be a little bit ahead of the others in terms of just offensive line IQ. And Big Dooley Phillips coming in from Georgia, a guy that I had questions about in terms of his ability to bend his knees and be athletic. Kapilovic talked about him at the press conference a week and a half ago, saying that they just like him in terms of just his sheer man size, big guy, width, and that's what they got him for. And they're happy with those guys for what they are, but they've only played one scrimmage, those freshmen. I'm guessing for a scrimmage, they might have gotten 10 reps. Because first string offensive line, second string offensive line, a lot of those true freshmen are with the threes, maybe 5 reps. The scrimmages I've seen over the years, the threes, the third stringers might get 5 to 7 reps in an entire scrimmage. So too early with those guys. Question number 7, but I appreciate your enthusiasm. Question number 7, 5 State from Grand Rapids. He says, he's got a 5-part question. 7A, he says, I've not heard any buzz on Jalen Hunt or Michael Fletcher. Have they missed their window? I can't say that Jalen Hunt's a little banged up. I asked Mel Tucker about that specifically off the podium, just because I didn't see him out there, and I guess I can go ahead and divulge that. A little banged up, no more than that. I don't need to know more than that, but you're right. There's not been any hype about him. And Jalen Hunt, he has ability. I mentioned this last week, a couple weeks ago. I rewatched that Penn State game. He made a huge play on 4th down, pivotal play on 4th down. 2-gap in the center and just disengaging and getting a tackle for loss. We talked about this last week, had a big play on a key 3rd down against Michigan. You can see him when he locks up mano-a-mano against people. That ability does flash. From what I hear and understand, getting him to be like totally committed to football, totally, get that pilot light lit and the drive that they need. That's been a little bit of a challenge, quite frankly. And, there were some things that needed to be taught, football IQ stuff coming out of high school. So he has ability. He has 4-star ability, but the whole thing has to be there. So now with the banged up thing, I'm not sure what that's going to entail, but not a guy that needs to be spending a lot of time in the tub right now. Good news is they've got a lot of other defensive tackles, but would it be nice if all of a sudden the light went on for him and he became just a wrecking ball as a second stringer? I mean, Maverick Hansen does a good job as a second string defensive tackle, but Jalen Hunt has the capacity to be better than Maverick Hansen. He's not there right now. Maverick Hansen shows up every day, chewing bullets. So don't close the door on Hunt, but pilot light needs to get lit. Michael Fletcher, I saw him first day of practice, and he looked to me like he had added a little bit of mass, which he needed. As a guy that was active, somewhat productive in 2021, 2020. I'm sorry, the COVID year. He had like 3.5 sacks, I think. A guy I've always said that has good straight line speed, made some plays, pursuing from the backside, sideline to sideline, pretty good. Not a guy that's going to run the hoop. I said that when he was in high school. He was a 3-star defensive end, and I thought that was accurate. Good kid. And they need help at defensive end, right? You've got Bogle coming in from Florida, they feel pretty good about. Pietrowski, they feel pretty good about. Brandon Wright has been playing better, but you need another defensive end or two. And yeah, it's Fletcher's turn. It's his time. And no, I've not quite heard any buzz about him. I asked Mel Tucker about Fletcher at the beginning of spring practice, and he said, yeah, this is an important spring for Fletcher. He needs to show something. I don't think we saw him in the spring scrimmage. So he's still around, but I wouldn't expect any miracles. But he's a guy that's been on the field and he's been functional in the past. 7B question from 5 State out of Grand Rapids. Who would be your guess to be this year's Cal Halliday? Parentheses, surprise breakout player. Any chance it's A.J. Kirk? Good question about A.J. Kirk. And he plays a position where they could use some help. He's a physical guy, had a great senior season in high school in Ohio. Hey, we got a special guest. We're going to have Ron Armstrong's going to be calling in.
Call from
Big Move.
To accept, press 1. To send a voicemail, press 2.
All right, let's go out to the guest line. We've got the one and only Big Mooby, Ron Armstrong, joining us by popular demand. A lot of people have been asking, get Mooby on the show. We got him today. We're ready to talk some Michigan State football. What, about 2.5 weeks out till the beginning of the 2022 college football season? I'm excited. I know Big Mooby's excited. Former Spartan, card-carrying Spartan dog, Ron Armstrong. Ron, how are you doing tonight?
Hey, pretty good. Kind of glad to be back with you. Like you said, we're getting the ankles taped and the eye black on, and getting ready to get out there and get some the pads popping. It's about that time.
All right, I just want to ask you about your friends, the Spartan dogs that are out there. I know that you converse quite frequently with Michigan State former football players all over the country. I'm sure you guys chat and so forth. Tell me about what they're saying. How much excitement is there? What kind of things are you guys talking about?
Yeah, man. I think to a man, Tucker has a lot of juice in the program right now. I mean, there's a lot of excitement. I think from the admin, through all the way down to former players. Seems like everybody's pulling from the same side of the rope. So it's a lot of excitement, a lot of positive momentum going on. And excited to get the season going and see what year 3 brings for Coach Tucker.
All right, what are you thinking? Do you spend much time reading some of the coverage coming out of camp, or even Athlon's preseason stuff that I wrote down, or just any of the preseason stuff? What kind of?
What I do is I like to. I've kind of had a different approach. I like to try to see, get in to see a couple of practices, and before, because I don't want to go in there with someone else's opinion or some preconceived notions of who should be what. I like to go try to get out there and take a couple of practices and maybe catch a scrimmage and then come away from it with, hey, this is what I saw and this is my opinion on it, rather than going in there trying to get in the sand or practices or critique what someone else, they're especially the national writers who haven't been on campus actually see the kids. Mm-hmm. I don't usually read that stuff just because usually they're not putting in some preconceived research and the man hours to know some of our kids that, frankly, they should know if they're going to do a write-up about it. But typically, no, I don't usually read the stuff. I like to go see it for myself, then I'll circle back and kind of see who knew what they were talking about. All
right, and you've not had a chance to watch scrimmages or anything like that yet, so it's good because we can talk to you about it without you having to, hide anything. You can just talk as if this is June or that type of thing. I had a question here earlier tonight. Someone asked, who is this year's, or just a minute ago, that's one of the questions I fielded, who do I think is this year's Cal Halliday? Meaning someone who's going to come out of nowhere and maybe become a starter type of thing. Do you have any dark horse type people that could do that? The guy
I don't know if there's Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Like the guy mentioned A.J. Kirk, and I started to talk about A.J. Kirk when you called in. And A.J. Kirk's a guy that had a really good senior year in Ohio, and he's physically built well, and I think they like the way he runs around and so forth. At practice a couple weeks ago, I saw that there's still like an instructional level with him, and I don't know if that's the case like every single day, but he's got some ability, and more importantly, he plays a position where they could really use somebody to, I don't want to say come out of nowhere, but someone to really rise up and provide something. So he has the ability, and there is an opportunity there. I'm just not sure those are ready to match up this year. But A.J. Kirk might be the Malik Carr of the defense. I don't know if that makes any sense. But who you got in mind in that category?
Right. I don't necessarily think the guy will come out of nowhere. But I said this, and I've pretty much been consistent about it. I think Petrowski is a kid I'm looking for to have a big year. It just every time I see the kid, he's flying around, and there's some things that I see him do naturally. I thought he would just continue to get better with BT teaching him and Coleman. So I think he's going to have a huge year. Like I'm looking forward to him having a Kenny Willickis sort of year. Maybe not defensive lineman of the year type year, but just like, man, who's this kid? Who's this 47 flying around making plays? That's the first one that I think just, out of nowhere it's going to may surprise some folks. Trying to think of anybody else that just, and look, you and I talked before, and the name's been out there for quite a bit now. Davion Prim, when I saw him in the spring, I thought, I kept saying, man, who is this 21? Who is this 21? Because I thought it was a transfer. And he just kept making plays. So I think that kid's, poised to have a big year. I think Lowry's going to have a big year for us. 29 in the corner. I think in defensive back, I think he's going to have a big year.
Why
Marquis? Those are guys that I'm looking.
What do you like about Marquis Lowry?
Well, first of all, kid's physical. And he's usually in the right spot. He knows the concepts. And when you see guys just that fit, he's every time I see him make a tackle, it's firm. And that's just to me, the more reps guys like that get, you can see the confidence level grow. And I think the injury earlier last season kind of held him back some. But the more he started to play, the more you can see the ability. I'm just looking forward to that kid having a full healthy season, just to kind of see where his talents can take him. But he's another kid that I thought, towards the end of last year was playing some pretty good football.
What about the rest of that corner position? Ronald Williams is a guy that I think has some ability, size, and was still new to the role of playing corner, especially at the major college level. I wouldn't sleep on him, and you've got him paired up with Amir Speed. Those corners, it goes all the way back to the Saban days. Saban loves to have big corners, and he always said that dictates the rest of what you can do. Ronald Williams, I think we have a good idea that Amir Speed is going to be a nice, capable, special type of guy there, potentially. Those two corners, the ceiling is high, but they still, they haven't quite done it yet. That's an intriguing tag team there, ahead of Marquis Lowry, supposedly, there at that position. I think there's talent and ability there at the corner position on this roster.
There's a lot to like about that group. You talked about the size of Williams and Speed. I think that's as big a group as you're gonna, big a tandem as you're gonna find in college football. I think both of those guys are over 6'2", right around 200 pounds plus. Those are some big corners. They both can run. I think getting Williams to play every snap with the right amount of confidence is the next step for him. I think he has all the talent, all the ability in the world. I think sometimes he might give up a play and get a little bit down on himself, but just getting him to play every snap with that confidence that, hey, you're going to have to beat me for 60 minutes. That's the next step for him. But I think bringing in Amir Speed and having that Georgia national championship sort of pedigree has amped up the confidence in that position room.
Yeah, and with Mel Tucker taking over the corners and Harlan Barnett, Barnett, we all know that he's capable, and Mel Tucker went out of his way to really compliment Harlan Barnett this week at the press conference. Someone asked about Angelo Gross, and he kind of morphed that into an answer that also included Harlan Barnett. if I can find that exact quote here, I'll try to find it. But I mean, we all know what Harlan Barnett's all about, and Mel Tucker's known him for a long time also. But just reading between the lines, or even not between the lines, just the straight out information, Tucker likes what Barnett has going on with the safeties. Of course, Xavier Henderson is really good. Angelo Gross still has some learning to do there, but the chances of this pass defense, I think, of becoming not just functional, but good to quite good, to go from dead last in the country last year to something I think that could be quite good in pass defense this year. And I think that the capabilities are there. I think the personnel is there. Gross is a key guy that's got to come around, and Barnett's got to get him to play functional football at that other safety position. But I'm bullish on pass defense. Now the pass rush, like your guy Piotrowski, if he comes around, that'd be good. If Bogle comes around, that'd be great. You've got Brandon Jordan, working to get that pass rush improved as well. But I'm bullish on pass defense, Ron. And when I say that, they're still going to give up 300 plus to some teams because that's just the way college football is these days. You can't swim without getting wet. You're going to get wet a couple of times. But I feel good about this pass defense. Am I crazy?
No, I think I personally think that the back seven will be improved because I think we've gotten better at the linebacker position from an athletic standpoint. I don't think some of those windows will be quite as large for the quarterback to fit the ball in. I think some of the things we tried to hide with concepts, as far as our linebackers' ability to coverage. We tried to do some combo things with our safeties that I think kind of got us exposed a little bit, or so I don't think we'll have to do as many things that to hide some deficiencies. I think that the athletic ability in our linebackers are there. Gross, I think let's just be honest, like Gross, it's like a right fielder, going to center field, man. You got to learn how to play the whole field, and I think at times he struggled last year. That's to be expected. I mean, that's a big change in position. But, hopefully, I know he's put the work in, and HB, like you said, Harlan Barnett's one of the best in the business at teaching, where your eye discipline and, reading the coverages and, reading the offense and, understanding where you need to be and having a global understanding of our scheme. So, Harlan's one of the best in the business at teaching that. So, it won't be, if, Gross doesn't get it done, it will not be because he didn't have the right guy teaching it. It's just, some guys just, it doesn't work out. But overall, there's a lot to like in that group. And quite honestly, man, it was kind of a head scratcher last year that we were so bad on pass defense because the guys can run, they can cover. It just seemed like they were thinking a little bit too much and playing the stuff too slow here and there. So maybe I'm expecting that another year in the system, full spring ball, full complement of summer, fall camp, that, these guys are playing faster and they're understanding where they need to be. They're understanding where their help is. So just that entire back seven, playing on the string and knowing where the help is, knowing where the boundaries are and things like that. And also being able to sprinkle in some new looks that, because quite honestly, I thought we were sometimes we're a little basic and we're playing bend but no break, and teams were just dinking and dunking on us, and guys weren't attacking the football. So I think you'll see our corners make more plays and be a bit more aggressive, and that just comes with confidence in the scheme. And if we can get that pass rush going, the quarterback there's a big difference in completion percentage when the ball's got to come out in under 3 seconds. 2.8. There's a big difference. And that ball's got to come out. So,
right.
I like, if we can get that under 3 seconds, and I think, we'll see those numbers drop. Now, we won't have, Western Kentucky throwing the ball 80 times,
right.
And these types of things, but they kind of skew the numbers. But
it did.
I look at the plays that are there to be made, that the guys make them, not so much the total numbers. Because if you're ahead by a ton and teams are passing over and over, that might skew the stats a little bit. Or if you play a team like Purdue or, Western Kentucky that's going to throw the ball 50, 60 times a game, that'll skew the stats. I look at, hey, man, are guys making plays on the ball when they have a chance to? And I thought there were some times where it may have been an interception there to be made, and the guy was just a step slow. Those are the things where you can see improvement.
Right. And, this is a point that I've made in the past. Michigan State was dead last in terms of passing yards allowed. But the more telling stat, I think most people would more people that follow football closely on the inside, yards allowed per pass attempt is more important than total yards allowed. And in yards allowed per pass attempt, Michigan State allowed 7.2 yards per pass attempt, which was number 67 in the country. Not great, but it's not dead last. And number 10 in the Big Ten,
right,
which is not great, but it's not dead last. And to your point, I think like in the first half of the season last year, Michigan State was doing a lot of bend but don't break. Mel Tucker doesn't agree with that terminology, but that's what they were, especially against Miami. Miami threw for about 317 yards, but they put in the air 55 times or whatever it was. So the yards per pass attempt were not efficient for Miami, and they ended up scoring fewer than 20 points. So that was Perlis ball, and it worked that day. I think Michigan State, I think that they can skew things and be a little bit different week to week. I don't know if that's what they want to do, but I think that was kind of the way they began last year. And there was some bend but don't break against Western Kentucky and others, and they did put up some big numbers. And then in the second half of the season, maybe the last third of the season, when maybe they tried to do a little bit more, things looked like they were blowing up more. Like against Michigan, some combination coverages, and they attacked Gross. Some guys got out, and against Purdue, they were really difficult to stop. And, of course, Ohio State was amazing. But when you look at pass offense last year, Michigan State played 5 of the top 13 pass offenses in the country. 5 of their 12 regular season opponents, almost half of their opponents were in the top 13 pass offenses in the country. Western Kentucky was number 1, averaging 433 yards per game. Ohio State was number 3. Purdue was number 5. Miami's number 10. Maryland was number 13. Michigan State played 5 of the top 13 passing attacks in the country. So you put that all into the equation, and yeah, they gave up more yards than anybody, but I think that there are some asterisks in there and some caveats that if Michigan State all of a sudden becomes one of the top 5 in the Big Ten in yards allowed per pass attempt, I think that is possible. In fact, I'm kind of expecting that to be the case. The pass rush piece is important. Brandon Jordan's the impact he's having will be seen. I'm not sure what it's going to be. I'm eager to see what that's going to look like. And, the pass rush work that he's done with Pietrowski. I mean, does Pietrowski go from a guy that's been like, a somewhat productive pass rusher? Like you said, maybe not a Kenny Willekes type, but maybe he does become something like that. I don't know. Keith Bogle's a guy that's had a lot of ability over the course of his career. Now he's going to be turned loose possibly as a starter. What kind of impact does Brandon Jordan have on someone like him? Remains to be seen. Brandon Wright, we keep hearing good things about him throughout the spring. He finished last season with a bang. Speedy, former running back there at defensive end, a guy that I'm hearing can be someone that you can play on first or second down, and he can play the run. Does Brandon Wright become that guy that comes out of nowhere and makes a big splash? Brandon Wright seems to be pretty fired up about things. The Brandon Jordan impact pass rush coach, it might be big, it might be small. We don't know. I'm thinking it's going to be tangible, but these are some of the X factors for the season. What are you hearing about Brandon Jordan and the impact he has with defensive linemen and even linebackers and even defensive tackles?
What I was going to say, I think from what I've just been able to pick up, I thought the interior guys sound like they're the most excited about some of the stuff they've been able to incorporate in their game. I'm talking about Slade and Barrow.
Yeah,
we're just fired up at some of the stuff that they've learned under BT. Because when most folks think pass rush, they just think edge guys.
Yeah.
But if you can get those interior guys, quick pressure inside. Nothing disrupts a pass game more than quick inside pressure. So if you can get your 1 tech, your 3 tech, and that guy's pushing even if he's just pushing the quarterback and the quarterback's got a drift, those guys now you're drifting into the defensive end that's up the field. So and those 2 guys in our interior D linemen that's a pretty good group. So I think that we'll see some quick returns with BT from the interior guys. And the work that they're doing with Coleman, they were already pretty good, 2 good guys last year. So I'm expecting a big year from Slade and Barrow that'll help those D ends, turn the corner.
Yeah, Barrow and Slade.
Because if you got a double team, if you got I'm sorry?
Slade is proven, talking to him last week, he's expecting to take it up a notch, especially in that pass rush piece. And Simeon Barrow was one of the impact surprise freshmen of the Big Ten last year. I just wonder as that kid turns 20, 21 and, gets stronger and just more acclimated to college football. Simeon Barrow is a name that people around the Big Ten don't know that well, but you tag him in there with Slade, that defensive tackle tag team in there can be exceptional. And you put him in there with Brandon Jordan and working on the pass rush things. And also the linebackers. When you've got, Brule and Windman, guys that have been successful pass rushers in the past, especially Windman, just not every down pass rushers, but guys that can be stand-up defensive ends on third down. They'll be there, and they'll be drifting all over the place, sometimes dropping into coverage, sometimes coming on blitzes. Pass protection could get a little complicated for Michigan State opponents this year.
We fans are, talk about, hey man, we got to blitz more. We need to blitz, and part of blitzing is having guys that are good at it. And I don't think we've had, we've had some guys that could blitz, but we had a couple of guys a few years back that were just exceptional at blitzing. Ed Davis, when healthy, and DeNikos Allen were just fantastic at blitzing and timing and slipping blocks and things like that. I think with Winmon and Brule, we're going to have a lot more of that this year than we've had in some time.
Right.
Both of those guys are really good athletes, but they play with the right sense of timing and body lean and how to slide off blocks and not take the full block and not try to run through an offensive guard, but just kind of use their hands and their quicks to get around them, or just get them off balance enough that they can get to the quarterback. I think when you add that in, it's just look. Our 11 that we're going to put out there, September 2nd. I think there's going to be a lot of good athletes, high level athletes on that defense that, quite honestly, we needed last year, and we'll see. But I'm excited about that. That defense should be much improved, just based off the personnel.
You hear anything about Chris Bogle, the transfer defensive end from Florida?
I have not, which is why I need to get out there, because and I don't really ask a ton, about who's doing what. Just I know folks, they want to be careful what gets out there. So I have not. In fact, I don't remember hearing anything about him at all. So I want to get out and kind of see how he's progressing. But we're going to need him, But the good thing about this group is that there's a lot of bodies. So I don't think these guys are. I think to me, my excitement is that we shouldn't see, our safeties and these guys lead the country in snaps. Like, I think there's enough good players that we can, I thought last year our first 22 was as good as anybody. But then it kind of would taper off, as guys got hurt or something like that. I think this year, man, we're going, 55, 60 deep of good football players.
Right. I gained, hearing what the coaches are talking about, and Konadike and I talked about this in the VCast earlier this week. The coaches didn't come out and say it this way, and Tucker didn't say it this way, but he's talking about they have more players available to provide a punch on special teams, coverage units and so forth.
Yes.
And you hear about the depth at linebacker, depth at running back. Basically, it looks and sounds to me like that bottom 40 on the roster, the depth of the entire 85-man roster, is better than it's been the last couple of years. Maybe the best it's been in the last 3 years or maybe 4 years. Not sure they've got that Kenneth Walker at the top, though, that can really be the difference maker, that can help you pull out a close game, like the Michigan game last year. But top to bottom, they're backfilling more and coaching these guys up and bringing them along, their type of bodies, their type of frames, and starting to gain some traction there. And they feel, you can sense they feel pretty good about it.
Absolutely. Now, and I hate to be cliche, but, sometimes the cliches are right. Now, all of this, we can talk about the defense and, it's all going to come down to the offensive line, man. Like, everything if we're talking about Kenneth Walker, a lot of those plays K9 made last year were, they weren't blocked particularly well, and he just made a play. Now, some of them, they were blocked, perfectly, and K9 did the rest. But there's quite a bit of plays where he made, a 3-yard loss into an 18-yard gain.
Yeah.
And I don't know if we have that kind of, look, I'm going to go out on a limb and say we don't have that kind of player right now.
Correct.
I mean,
Absolutely.
just because, K9 is just a once in the,
Yeah.
you strike lightning in the bottle, and it's unfair to put that sort of pressure or expectation on any other kids we have back there, But I will say this: as a group, it's probably as much talent as we've had at that position group since the Bell, Baker, Caper days, where we had, I think maybe not the top end with Le'Veon, but just the entire running back room. There's a lot of those kids can play. And just figuring out which guy's going to, grab the ball and take the opportunity, that remains to be seen. But there's a lot of optimism. I'll tell you a kid, man, I think I'm excited for the type of year he's going to have. I am excited to see what Harold Joyner can bring to this offense.
Really?
I just think that kid has some ability that he can bring a dynamic that a little bit more juice than Hayward. I don't know if he has the hands, but it's a little bit more juice than Hayward, and I could just see some opportunities for him to make some big plays for us. There's just something about the way he looked when I saw him in the spring. He looked comfortable.
Yeah.
I'm excited to see what he brings. But that offensive line, I mean, there's some big bodies. They're young, but some big bodies. So we'll see. That's the group that I think will is the difference between 8 and 4 and 10+ wins at offensive line.
Huh. Yeah. And you've got J.D. Duplain back at left guard. He's a functional guy looking to take it to another level this year. Needs to become functional plus. Nick Samac starting at center, presumably for the first time in his career. I mean, he's had some starts in the past when Matt Allen was hurt in the past and so forth, but Samac needs to take it up a notch. You've got Brian Green transferring in from Washington State. Did not have a great season last year. Was banged up a little bit. His better season was the year before. And I still haven't watched film of him from the year before. I watched their bowl game against Central Michigan, and he was kind of I don't even know if he started in that game. He got like half the snaps and so forth, and was not great that day. But I talked to him and he said that he was banged up a little bit last year, and last year was a challenging year for Washington State in general for a lot of reasons. But I need to go back and watch more of his best season. I think he might have been honorable mention All Pac-12 the year before. I need to go back and see what his ceiling looks like. But you have Matt Carrick in there, needs to stay healthy. When I've been at practice, he's been getting some reps, and you see some of the film that was released from last week's scrimmage. There were some times you look in the background and back there, and Carrick was on the field. So that's probably a good sign. That's a guy that's been capable in the past, that's driven to have a really good 6th year. I mentioned earlier in the show tonight that I thought his best football of his career was last year as a backup behind Jarvis, once Jarvis was back from being, once he regained health. Carrick is a guy that was an emergency starter in 2019, 2020, but I thought he was better last year as a backup than he was hurt for the second half of the season. But, so there's pieces there. As you know, Spencer Brown looked good in the bowl game, and Horst at left tackle is kind of a question mark. He's got ability, but he's got to stay on the field and stay healthy and stay upright and all those things. So that's the X factor, that offensive line. And, knocking on the door to try to help. Brandon Baldwin's over there at left tackle, Ethan Boyd at right tackle. Vandermark's a young guy that I feel good about for the future. But, man, that is the big X factor, and that's what college football is all about.
Yeah, listen, I'll tell you what. Across the board, it's probably the largest group of linemen we've had in some time. I don't pretend to know. I just know that, they were, in the Perlis era and certainly Nick Saban era, we had some really big offensive linemen. And I thought, maybe in the last few years we might have been a little undersized in that group. That's not going to be the case, moving forward. These are some big kids that are natural 300-pound plus guys, not kids who were 260 that we tried to bulk up. So if they weren't 300 pounders, they were 290, lean 290, 6'6", 290 high school kids that can easily play at 315, 330. With the weight room and the nutrition and stuff like that we have going now. So it won't be a case where we're too small or up front. It's just getting these guys, the reps really is what it's going to come down to, and getting them to play as a unit. But look, Cap seemed pretty high on him. He was optimistic about the group, that they were progressing at the right clip. So I said I'm trying to get out there and watch a couple of practices. Obviously I'm limited in what I can say, but
right.
I'd like to just kind of put eyes on those guys and see see how they're coming around. And in the quarterback room, I think we're comfortable there. There's a couple. The receivers. I think that group. Everybody's excited about Keon. I talked to Hawkins. Hawk thinks. Obviously thinks highly of his group.
Sure.
So yeah, man, there's a lot to like. I tell you what, another X factor, the tight end position.
Yeah.
I think we have a chance to get some good production out of the tight ends. So, and that's, if you have an offense that you can constantly go to the tight end, you can stay on the field and you can move the chains. That'll help that defense out quite a bit also. And I think there's something else that we're going to talk about with the defense. We scored a lot of quick, big plays on offense last year. So that defense was on the field a lot. There weren't a ton of, Coach D'Antonio 13-minute, 75, 17-play drives last year. It was, 6 quick or 3 and out sort of deal. So I think if we can, sustain some drives, obviously you want big plays, but there's also a point in the game where you want to be able to, sustain the drive and keep get the defense off the field and chew some clock. And having a tight end that you can throw the ball to over the middle and move the chains, helps that.
And DJ Barker, the transfer from Illinois, was really a weapon for the Illini last year, especially in the red zone. When we spoke with the tight ends coach 2 weeks ago in Kapilovic, they said he has things to learn, get acclimated to the way Michigan State does things. Michigan State likes to stretch that field with a tight end, not just red zone. Malik Carr is a guy that can give him some of that. Tyler Hunt has added some weight. We'll see how that translates. But Barker's a proven guy. And, Michigan State has run its offense the last 2 years. Last year they turned Connor Hayward into a playmaking tight end, but he wasn't a consummate, all-purpose type of tight end. Barker can block, and he can release and get downfield and be a possession guy. In terms of moving the chains, Barker's going to give something to Peyton Thorne that he didn't quite have in the past. Hayward was pretty good, but he wasn't like an all-purpose, a guy that you could really run behind in the blocking, in the run game and so forth. So even Jay Johnson, who loves to utilize two-way, all-around tight ends, has not had that. Might have that this year. So you might see not necessarily new wrinkles, but just a little more, conventional effectiveness, spread around nicely at that tight end position. Or thanks to the tight end position.
And from a play caller standpoint, if you have a tight end that can stretch the field, especially running the seams, that opens up a ton of things that you can do in terms of, now the defense has determined if they're going to have a linebacker play underneath that, the safety over the top. So that opens up some one-on-ones. It opens up your running back in the pass game behind that. So having that tight end that can get vertical in the middle of the field, man, just, it impacts the defense quite a bit and what they got to, how they have to address that. And from an offensive standpoint, man, it just opens up so many more options, with your route concepts and getting creating one-on-one matchups for your receivers. So, yeah, that's huge. If he can, with the transfer and Malik Carr, if we can get that, consistently, man, that's going to move. That's going to, really, really help our offense in terms of just, like I said, moving the chains and also creating some big plays.
And Malik Carr, last year came on late in the season and really stretched the field, did some big things. He has to show that he can be a blocker. And if he can block, then that puts the defense in a bind. Because if he's showing, if what's he, number 6, I think. If number 6 is on the field, the offense knows pass threat. But if he can be equal and you can run, not only can he run block, but he can run to his side, then his ability to crack down and release becomes really problematic for a defense. Really problematic. He's got the capacity to do that, and that's what they're working on. And apparently he's bought in, and he knows that's his route to professional ranks, and that's what they need out of him at that position. So that's the next factor. Also, Malik Carr has a high ceiling of potential. If he achieves all-around status as a tight end, that can really help the offense a lot. Think back to 2 years ago in year number 1 under Mel Tucker. I mean, they had nothing at tight end. They had Tyler Hunt. Bless his heart, doing what he could do as a former punter. But I can't even remember who the other tight ends were. I'd have to look it up. But did not have much to work with there at that position. But they're getting their guys in now, and Peyton Thorne's doing a lot of leading to help bring it around even more. You mentioned Keon Coleman. A lot of reasons to be excited about him. Explosive, 6'4", big, physical, leaping ability, acceleration. You can go to the Spartan Mag channel here on YouTube and see the press conference when he was at the podium here a couple days ago. Bright kid, energetic, committed, driven, just, that his tail's wagging. His tail is wagging. He just wants to get out there and start catching those balls, and he's going to do it, and he's going to be an impact guy, wide receiver this year, Keon Coleman. Before I let you go, what else is on your mind? Have you watched any of the Big Ten Network, as they cruise around and visit campuses? I watched last night. They visited Wisconsin and Minnesota, which is interesting because Michigan State plays both of those two teams. A couple of tough crossovers for Michigan State, I would say. A couple of tough crossovers. I think Minnesota's got a shot to win that division for the first time in their history. But have you watched any of that, any of the Big Ten programming?
I have not. Like I said, I usually, Cap, honestly, man, I don't usually watch any of them just because most of the time they try to say something nice about everybody.
Yeah.
And I don't know how much you can really get from that.
Yeah.
I will say this: tough matchups in terms of quality opponents, but easy matchups in terms of style of play to prepare for.
Yeah. Wisconsin this year. Wisconsin has a new offensive coordinator this year. Bobby Ingram's coming in, former Penn State wide receiver. Spent a couple years in the NFL. He was with Paul Chryst at the University of Pittsburgh for a while. It sounds like, I'll believe it when I see it, but it sounds like Chryst is going to loosen up the reins a little bit. So is this going to be a different looking
but they have that. Listen, you're not going to get away from giving the ball to that running back. And that kid's a stud.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, if he doesn't touch the ball 20 times plus per game,
number 0, Braylon.
That's negligent.
Yeah,
Braylon Allen. I mean, that's negligent, man. Like that kid's a monster.
Yeah.
And you don't recruit the offensive linemen they do to throw the ball 40 times a game. So they're going to run the ball. Will they try to throw down the field a little bit more? Probably, but it's still going to be that off tackle. Try to condense the defensive line and pop that thing to the skinny side and outnumber you that way. That they've been running for 30 years now. So.
I think
going in.
I think that those crossover games are kind of the swing games. I think they're both in the first half of the year. Of course, the Michigan game is huge, monumental, all those things. Penn State at the end of the year is big. Ohio State's a big test. Everybody knows that. Maryland, they're going to have a little bit more spark this year. It seems like Indiana's going to try to get off the mat and make noise again. But the Minnesota game, I think it's Michigan State's first Big Ten opponent, week number 4 after the trip to Washington. And I think both teams are going to have really trying to prove something in that game. That's going to be a strong, old-fashioned late September Big Ten football game, man. I think Michigan State and Minnesota is going to be strong, going to be hot.
It's been a good game, but I'd rather see us play those kind of teams and teams like Purdue that throw the ball 80 times a game. I just from styles make fights, and I think we're a bit more better equipped to handle a team that wants to be balanced than one that wants to throw it around the yard all day. It's just hard to prepare for.
Yeah, and Minnesota, they've got their old coordinator back. They fired their coordinator from last year because they really didn't get much going on offense last year, even though they went 9-4. Won their bowl game. They brought back Kurt Chiraka, who went to Penn State. He left Minnesota to go to Penn State. Things didn't work out there. Then he spent last year as an analyst at West Virginia. They fired their coordinator, brought Chiraka back. So Tanner Morgan, the quarterback, 6th-year quarterback, did a lot of great things with Chiraka 2 or 3 years ago when they beat Auburn in the bowl game and had a huge season. So they're trying to reignite that. And then they've got the running back Ibrahim. He's back after having a great first half against Ohio State last year and being lost of the year. Minnesota's going to be pretty good. That's going to be a challenge. And the whole football season is a challenge. That's where you want it. You don't want to be cowardly with your scheduling. And Michigan
Yeah,
State's,
I mean, listen. Yeah, we're look. We're not gonna. We're not. When we're walking off the field. Thanksgiving weekend. We won't be. It won't. Whatever our record is, we would have earned it because we're not. We're not. It's not going to be an easy schedule, or we didn't duck anybody. So, but like you said, that's the excitement of it all. And I think, like Coach Purvis used to say, they got to play us too.
yeah. And that was never fun. Playing Michigan State back then.
So,
yeah, he used to tell people they better pack a lunch and a flashlight. They try to run against us. It's going to be a long day. Pack a lunch.
Make them, he's like say, make them not want to play you twice.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I'm excited, man. It's the cool. Have a little bit of cool weather the last few days, and you can almost smell the football in the air, man. It's ready. I'm ready to go.
All right, Ron Armstrong. He's ready to go. He's getting ready to go. We will keep our ear to the ground to get any more, just indications on how things are shaping up over there at Michigan State camp. As we go along, we'll have Ron on throughout the season. We appreciate his insight, certainly, and I know the subscribers here at Spartan Mag do too. So, Ron, you have a great night. Thank you for your time, and I'll talk to you soon, okay?
Hey, thanks for having me. Go Green.
All right, there he goes. Ron Armstrong. I saw over here in the chat area people asking about Ron Armstrong and when he played and so forth. He was with Michigan State in the early 1990s, took a medical disqualification due to injury, so didn't have a big impact on the field. So that's why some of you may not remember the name, but he's been here in the East Lansing area all along. And he's had an impact in youth football around the East Lansing area as well. And because he's here in town, he watches closely, and he certainly knows more about football than I do, so he's become a good friend of mine and someone that I really value his input, his insight, and his knowledge as I try to continue to learn the game of football, as we all do as we age. But he's an astute observer, and as I saw him around town and stuff when we would talk football, it was always very insightful when I had a chance to talk to him. So we brought him into the news organization at Spartan Mag, over at the Underground Bunker message board here in recent years with the Skull Session podcast. It's been really well received because he's great. He knows his stuff. He knows the program. He's watching it, not from afar. He's watching it in close. And we love talking with him and talking Michigan State football with Big Mooby for sure. And he posts over the Underground Bunker message board pretty frequently. So if you want to be a subscriber to SpartanMag.com, hear more from him and myself, Paul Konerdijk, and all the cast of thousands over at SpartanMag.com, including Jason Killip, our recruiting anchor, Noah Sprunger, he's our intern extraordinaire, Jake Laskawa doing some good work for us as a new intern as well, Ricardo Cooney, senior writer for a long time, a guy I've known for a long time, Ricardo Cooney doing a good job as always. I think we've got a press conference tomorrow being Wednesday, and we'll have more coverage over at SpartanMag.com. Let me go over here to the comments section and see what's going on over here. We're a little bit late getting over here to the comments section, but appreciate your waiting. Brad Fashenko checking in first from Austin, Texas. Rob Moffitt, he's new in the starting lineup from West Bloomfield. He was ready to go. Gordon Tanona's here. Will Stallworth saying go Green. Almost time for a beautiful day for some football. And Rob South saying what's up, fellas. So we got Rob South running the point. Got Fashenko. We got Fashenko down low today. He's in the pivot. They don't call it the pivot anymore, but I'm going to call it the pivot. Rob Moffitt, he's the new one. He's a shooting guard. Got him off waivers. Tanona, he's a wing forward. He can fill it up from deep. He's got good speed, runs the floor. And Will Stallworth, he's banging in there. He's your stretch four. He's got some strength to him, and he can be. He's nailing the 3-pointer for us deep. That's our starting five. JC 1829 checking in from Washington D.C. Keith Tunstall checking in from Mount Morris, Michigan. Mount Morris, we used to play them in high school. Ed Francis, MJ from Hong Kong. MSU number one fan says, do you think we will see Hampton Fay at quarterback in the Akron game? I think Michigan State I think things will become comfortable enough in the Akron game to see a second-string quarterback, and I suspect it's going to be Noah Kim. It's a good question, though, but that's just my guess. Sam Capellos is checking in from Birmingham, Michigan. MJ said it's 9:12 in the morning in Hong Kong. Thanks for checking in with us, MJ. Hope you have a great day. That would be Wednesday morning in Hong Kong, as we're wrapping up Tuesday night over here in East Lansing, Michigan. Old Tuck, the bell cow's here, but he's coming off the bench today. You're late, Old Tuck. John Blair, 2344, says, checking in from beautiful Marshall, Michigan. Go Green. That's home of Ryan Van Dyke, a good Spartan. Craig, go Green, says, Comparoni is in the house. Yeah. Yes, I am. Keith Tunstall says, hearing a lot of people saying Hauser is out playing Peyton in the fall camp. Interesting. I doubt that. Gordon Tonona says, State has 17 commitments. I thought it was 13. I thought it was 17. Did I say 17? Every time I'm on Stout's show, he always asks, well, not anymore, but he used to always ask, all right, how many commitments are there, man? It's not something I keep in my mind. Yeah, 13 commitments. My bad. So, yeah, 7 more to get up to 21. I don't know why I had the number 17 in my mind. That's why I hate talking about that stuff. I don't know how many commitments there are. 13, whatever. Maybe it's because I saw that they were ranked. They're not ranked. I don't know. I don't know where I got that. 13, you're right. Sam Capello says the FBI raided Jim Harbaugh's house today. They were looking for a win against Tucker. They couldn't find anything. Sam Capello, bringing some comedy there. Yeah, 13 commitments. Steve Cruz, listing from Austin, Texas. Noah Kim's a black belt in karate. Shay reporting in from Houston, Texas. Gordon Sonona says the nation will know who Peyton Thorne is, vastly underrated. Steve Cruz says, seeing print on all the transfer linebackers, where is Nate Ote? Ma'a Nate Ote, he's like a third-string linebacker. He's got some pop to him. Coverage units, physical, decent job hitting. Rewatched him a little bit in the spring scrimmage. Doing some decent things. He's functional, he's competent, he's solid. I just think that Brule is more athletic. He's played a little bit more. Windman, athletic, good pass rusher. Brule's good with pass defense. Halliday's proven, was ahead of him last year. Darius Snow coming in being a guy that's bringing some speed to the position as well. Nate Ote was solid last year. Good guy doing all that he can. He was, a borderline top 100 guy, recruit, 4-star recruit. But I said back then, if you read closely over the Underground Bunker message board, I thought that his quickness was just kind of okay. Reminded me of Shane, from Cincinnati Moeller a few years ago. That was a 4-star recruit, and I'm like, you're not that quick. Nate Ote's junior film needed more speed. His senior film, he was quicker. I like his heart. I like his head. He's tough. Needs to continue to show that he can play with some quickness, and it's looking better in that area, but I'm not surprised that he was not the instant impact guy that a lot of people assumed he would be based on rankings. And I got to say, the longer you do this and the longer that you guys have been fans, you will know that there's some people that if someone is a 4-star recruit, they're like, oh, the guy's going to be great. It's guaranteed. He's 4-star. I remember there's a guy in the media back, about 15, 20 years ago, talking to me. He was a Michigan State fan, but he was in the media, young guy. And he was all upset that Michigan State's pass defense was struggling a little bit, and they were not playing Broderick Nelson. He's like, Broderick Nelson was a 4-star recruit. Why isn't he playing? Like he thought that he knew something that the coaches didn't know. And he thought that because he was 4-star, then he's automatically better than the 3-stars that were playing. And as you get older, whether it be a fan or as media, the more 4-star recruits that you have on your roster, the better chance you have of being a top 15, top 10 program. I think that's been proven. But that doesn't mean that every single 4-star recruit is great. So, I don't know. So he's third string, but I think he could rally and be productive and solid. But, it is what it is. Solid guy. Impressed with him during interviews this week. Team-oriented guy. Was in the portal briefly. And he says that guys like Ben Van Sumeren and Cal Halliday urged him to come back and return and help them build the defense. So I got a lot of respect for him. he didn't ask to be a 4-star recruit. Brad Vashenko says, let's talk Keon Coleman. Keon Coleman is going to be an impact player, I think, more than 40 catches this year, including some game-breaking plays. Ben Chi says, I love Spartan football, but I do not want summer to end. I hear you, Ben. I hear you loud and clear, and I agree. And that's one of the reasons that I think football is bigger in the South than it is in the Midwest, among other reasons. It became big down there, college football did, because they didn't have pro teams for decades and decades and decades and decades. And they still don't in Mississippi, Alabama, and South Carolina, Kentucky. Now they've got a team in West Tennessee, but for years they didn't. The Saints moved to New Orleans, start in like late 60s, but for 50 years there was just college football in Louisiana. I guess in Arkansas there's no pro football. Anyway, one of the other reasons that college football is bigger in the South is because when college football season is coming, it's a relief from the hot summer weather. So college football in the South is, we're getting into the best part of the year. In the Midwest, it's like, we don't want summer to end. There's some of that. I feel it too. Ron was just on a minute ago, and he's excited about some of the coolness in the air. I noticed a couple of leaves changing today. So it's a little bit bittersweet because college football is great. The tailgating, the atmosphere around campus. I enjoy it because a lot of my friends come back to campus for football games. It's great to see them. It's also a busy work season for me. That's not your problem, but I got to get geared up for that. But we work all year pretty much. But there's more of those long hour nights in the fall. But it's great to cover college football. But I hear what you're saying. Summer coming to an end is a little bit bittersweet. Good point. Benchy says, will Tyler Hunt see an expanded role? Well, I think he's capable of being a better tight end than he's ever been. He's added 10 good pounds. Tyler Hunt said he added about 20 and then chiseled it back down to 10. He's at about 240. When he began at tight end 2 years ago, he's 218. So he put on too much weight. Tight ends coach said, Ted Gilmore said they wanted to shave it back down. He was planning on doing that anyway. He added some weight while he underwent a procedure in the offseason, was not able to get as much conditioning in, so he kind of beefed up a little bit, and he's sculpting it back down. So he's hoping to be able to get more movement on defensive ends as a blocker now at the tight end position. So I think he can be a better, more all-around tight end, providing some blocking better than he has in the past. I'm not sure he's going to be a plus blocker, but better blocker than he's been in the past. And he's a willing guy that's given it everything he can as a blocker. And he's been reliable as a receiver. So I think he's going to be better, but you got Barker coming in, who I think is just better, a better player. And Malik Carr is a guy with all the ability. So Tyler Hunt could be a better player and see fewer snaps, which is not a bad thing. Don Juan says, does Zion Young make the 2 deep at edge? Yeah, defensive end, true freshman. Mel Tucker mentioned him during an alumni function a couple of weeks ago, and then he mentioned him again at the press conference a couple of days ago. Zion Young's about 6'5", 225 from Atlanta, one of the late additions to the recruiting class. And, if you're talking about 2 deep at defensive end, you got Chris Bogle in there, you have Pietrowski in there, and you have Brandon Wright in there. The 4th defensive end, could it be Zion Young? Tank Brown's in there a little bit. Is Zion Young a guy that could be in there in pass rush situations, or can he be an every down guy? I don't know. We don't know a lot about him yet, but he's getting complimented a lot. Could he become a 2 deep guy ahead of Fletcher? I think it's possible. So good question. John Chapman says Ben Van Sumeren is going to be the breakout guy this year, like Halliday last year. Okay, good prediction there. Thanks for playing along. We are hearing more about Van Sumeren from coaches. Tucker mentioned him on Monday, and we're hearing a little bit more about him. I think he may have shed just a little bit of weight. He might be playing a little bit quicker, but he's a guy that's in the spring scrimmage. They put him out there as a stand-up defensive end in pass rush and passing situations, and they utilized him there. Maybe not a guy that's going to drop and cover great in pass defense, but I think he's improved his quickness a little bit. He was always a big, muscular, burly guy, and I think he might have shed that down a little bit. But there's some scuttlebutt about him being an improved player. But the linebacker position, it is crowded. And they're going to be playing hard and checking in and checking out. You have Darius Snow in there. You have Van Summerton in there. Halliday in there. Ma'aneteote, and then the 2 transfers. I mean, they go 3 deep at the 2 linebacker positions. But there will be times when 3 linebackers are on the field. They did that in the spring scrimmage a couple times. Ran some 3-3-5. Taking a D lineman out, putting a linebacker in, keeping 2 linebackers in as inside linebackers and standing 1 up, and then standing up a defensive end. Pietrowski is going to be standing up a defensive end a lot this year. You saw it in the spring scrimmage if you paid attention. Scotty Hazelton did that a lot at Kansas State. His last year at Kansas State, they had a guy that was a stand-up defensive end, stood up all year. It's a 4-3, but one of them's a stand-up. People see a guy standing up and they assume that means it's a 3-4, but, well, I guess with Michigan State, it's a 4-2. But one of the 4 is going to be standing up. So it might look like because the guy's standing up, they might call him a linebacker and call it a 3-3, but it's not. It's a defensive end. They'll be standing up. I asked Pietrowski if he likes that. He says he likes it. What do you like about it? Just being able to see things a little bit better. I don't know. But if you're standing up, do you give up something in terms of pad level if they run it right at you? Remains to be seen. I mean, they got away with it at Kansas State. You swarm more people to the ball, and if you run well and you're well-conditioned and you play with a lot of depth, you can just kind of buzz around and get them on the ground. It'll be different. Jesse Adams says, checking in from Mount Pleasant, Michigan. My question is, since fall camp has started, we've heard very little from Carr. Why is that? Baker had a day, Mel said, I saw. Thanks for your hard work, Jim. Yeah, we're not hearing, they talked about Malik Carr 2 weeks ago when Gilmore spoke, but it's hard for coaches to talk about everybody. But they want that kid to keep working and work on his blocking and so forth. Not sure. Keith Tunstall says Jacoby Winmon is coming for Cal Halliday's starting position. Yeah, it's going to be competitive in there. And Halliday was, he was more the weak linebacker, not so much the play-calling Mike linebacker. But Halliday's good. He's going to be better this year, but there's more competition there, and he feels good about it. Jesse Adams says, second question is, am I crazy to think this defense is going to be a lot faster on defense from linebackers to defensive backs? I also think our defensive backs are going to make a big step with Mel there. Gross worries me, though, among the DBs. I agree with all of that. I think the defense will be faster. It'll be faster at the linebacker position. With Brule and Winmon in there and Halliday getting better. Darius Snow playing at linebacker. Yeah, in the middle of the field is going to be quicker. Henderson's playing faster. Mel Tucker talked about that in the press conference 2 days ago. Said the metrics, they wear those GPS units, and they judge top speed, acceleration, all those things, and Henderson's faster than he was last year. Need Gross to play better, play faster, and then the defense will be, I think, a fast defense all the way around if Gross can play fast and play smart. Good kid. He's doing his best. Still new to that position back there a little bit. But in year 2, he's no longer the new guy. He needs to come around. We had a question over here about that, about Gross. Let me switch to that one. Let's see if I can find it. Where is it? Here it is. All right, Mel Tucker was asked about Angelo Gross in practice, how he's been doing in practice. This was Monday's press conference. And Tucker said, quote, his footwork has really cleaned up the last 3 or 4 days. He is playing fast. He is taking good angles. He is showing good range in the deep part of the field, and he is tracking the ball and packing a punch, unquote. So, do you believe him? Is he just putting stuff out there, for opponents, or is he giving them a pat on the back? I don't know, but that sounds great. If that's true that Gross is coming along as a safety, then this defense, I think, will be quite good, top to bottom, inside out, all the way around, and faster. So that's what he says. Tucker went on to say, Harlan Barnett really does a great job with those guys. Tucker said, I'm just telling you, he's a damn good football coach, and the players respond to him. He is on them nonstop to make sure we get what we want. I love the way he coaches the game, unquote. That's what I was talking about earlier when I mentioned that to Big Mooby when I said that when Tucker was asked about Gross, he took that He's complimentary of Gross, and he took that moment to also compliment Harlan Barnett, which does not surprise me. Let's go back here to the mailbag. All right, there's a 5-part question from 5 State out of Grand Rapids. He says, who will be this year's Cal Holiday? I mentioned, and he asked about A.J. Kirk. A.J. Kirk's got more learning to do, but he's got the physical ability to do it, but I've not heard that he's knocking on the door all that loudly to be the next Cal Holiday this year. Remains to be seen. Sometimes a guy can look a lot better in November than he does in September. Brandon Wright is a guy that's been talked about a lot. You saw him progress last year at defensive end. I think maybe he could be a guy that could come along, maybe even become a starter. I'm curious about Avery Dunn at defensive end. Watching him in practice, looks like he's added some bulk. I thought he was a late bloomer athlete type of guy with some ability at defensive end. I think he's got a chance to be the 4th defensive end. I'll be eager to see what he looks like. Deshaun Mallory is a guy that lost all that weight last year, probably lost too much weight and lost strength. Then they wanted him to put weight back on. Is he going to be at his ideal fighting weight this year? Remains to be seen. Jalen Hunt, talked about him earlier. He's got some ability, but the pilot light needs to stay on. On offense, wide receiver Christian Fitzpatrick. Big body guy, 6'2.5". I think he's from Farmington Hills, wasn't he? Went to Louisville, transferred in here. He's got ability. It's a little bit crowded there at wide receiver. And they only play about 4 receivers, so it's kind of hard to break into that playing group, but Fitzpatrick has some ability. I think he's got a future. Question 7C from 5 State from Grand Rapids says, which 2022 true freshman offensive lineman has impressed the most so far? The answer to that is it's too early. Like I said, Braden Miller was expected to be a little bit ahead of those guys, and maybe he is. Ashton Lepo's getting work at left tackle. They like his athleticism. Big Dooley, they like his sheer size and girth, but they've just been through a week and a half or so and had 1 scrimmage, so it's kind of early to say any of them are progressing. 7D, question 7D, of the 2023 near misses in recruiting, who are currently committed elsewhere? Who is the most likely to flip back and sign with Michigan State in December? That's a tough question. I don't know. I wouldn't say odds on which one would be most likely, but Michigan State continues to recruit a lot of them. And they're still working on Elliott Washington, by the way. Keep an eye on him. He's committed to Penn State, used to be committed to Alabama, was kind of a silent commitment to Michigan State for a time. I don't think Michigan State's done there. Question number 11 from Nick Marsh. Who is the most likely next signee for 2024? They've worked on Jacob Oden, the safety from Harper Woods, 6'1", 187, ranked number 135 in the country. It looked like they might have been getting close to getting him in the spring, but there's going to take some more work there. But it's hard to say. I mean, nobody really knew that Nick Marsh was that close to popping. I mean, we heard about it with maybe 48 hours in advance, but the week before we weren't really sure. But wouldn't surprise me if something like that happens with somebody in that 24 class. Tucker's got a hot name right now. Question number 12, Pierre St. Pierre from Parts Unknown says, Week 0 question, what should we expect to see out of Western Michigan University Broncos? He says they break in a new quarterback and they lost wide receiver Sky Moore. What, if anything else, makes them dangerous? Question mark. I got to loosen up here a little bit. 2.5 weeks till the Broncos come to town. Western Michigan last year was 8-5. They beat Nevada in the Quick Lane Bowl. They beat Pittsburgh last year 44-41. It was a shuttle relay. Really a bad loss for Pittsburgh. Let's say they returned like 4 on offense, 5 or 6 on defense. The quarterback's supposed to be redshirt freshman Jack Salopek. He's competing with somebody. I think there's a transfer from Alabama that's in the hunt a little bit too. But this guy Salopek, 3 for 5 last year on the season for 20 yards. I don't know anything about him. Running back, they got a good running back, Sean Tyler. 1,100 yards last year. Former Spartan Ladarius Jefferson. Remember him as a quarterback out of Muskegon? Played some running back here, transferred out. Had 836 yards last year. I think he's a 6th-year senior now. He's going to be fired up to play Michigan State. Head coach at Western Michigan, Tim Lester. He's been to bowl games 3 of his 5 seasons. Good coach. A little bit of a rebuilding year. They beat Pittsburgh last year. They lost the quarterback, lost the receiver, so probably won't be as explosive, but I'm expecting that to be competitive for a while. Question 13, but I'm just we'll be looking into that one a little bit, but I like to look at film, and last year's film with Western Michigan, it's going to be different players this year. when we do the pre-snap read for the first game of the season, it's going to be more about Michigan State than the opponent. That's the way we traditionally do the first week of the pre-snap read because we don't have film of the opponent. Can look a little bit toward last year, but I might rewatch that Quick Lane Bowl against Nevada and see if I learn anything there. I don't know. Question 13, Matt from Springfield, Illinois says, I'm pretty optimistic about Michigan State this year. Talk me down a bit, he says. Talk me down. Besides offensive line depth, what do you think will be Michigan State's Achilles heel this fall? All right. We talked about this a little bit with Ron Armstrong a little bit ago, but to me, the two crossover games against Big Ten West opponents, those are swing games to me. Wisconsin and Minnesota. Michigan State gets them somewhat early in the season. They play Minnesota in week 4. They play Wisconsin in week 7 after the Ohio State game. Back-to-back games against Ohio State and Wisconsin. October 8th, October 15th. Then a bye week, then at Michigan. Whew. College football, every game matters, right? That's why we love it. It's going to be tough. But the schedule's tough. When your two crossover games are Wisconsin and Minnesota this year, I think that's tough. You know, we talked about Angelo Gross, that other safety position needs to improve. Jarrett Horst needs to improve at left tackle and stay strong for 12 games. The running backs should be okay, but they're not going to have the explosiveness of last year. So I don't try to talk people down, but I'm not one that usually. I certainly didn't predict 11-2 last year, so I might not be the right guy to give you what you want there on that one. Question 14, Sherlock H. from Sterling Heights says, what kind of feeling are you getting about Adam Nightingale and the hockey program? He says, I'm more optimistic today than in some time. Are you? Yeah, I have to say I was optimistic when Danton Cole was hired, and I think recruiting ended up being more difficult for Danton Cole than Danton expected. I don't know if it was style of play or what, but in hockey recruiting, you have to get in good with, there's these talent agents, these advisors, because a lot of these guys that are great players get advice on what programs to go to that are perceived to be better in terms of developing players for the NHL. I don't know all the ins and outs and all of that, but I think there were some roadblocks there. Michigan was very strong in that area. Now with the new coaching situation going on there, maybe they won't be as strong, I would imagine. But early returns seem to indicate that Nightingale is, I don't want to say favored nation status with some of those advisors, but there's been an uptick. You know, they just got a commitment today. That's probably what you're excited about, by a commitment from a guy by the name of Christian Humphreys. He's like a 5'11", probably going to end up being 6 feet. You know, high scoring forward type. He's a 2006 birth year, so he's basically like a sophomore in high school type of guy. Number 9 player overall for that birth year in terms of recruitable players. So he'll be playing for the USA National Developmental Program next year. So he'll be playing down in Plymouth. I mean, there just have not been many Michigan State players that have played at that program. They're not, the best recruits play are selected by USA to play in the developmental program. He's one. He's from Pittsburgh. He's at a prep school, I believe, in the Rochester, New York area, Bishop Kearney, and but that's a big time recruit, precisely the type of recruit they've not been getting in recent years. We were talking to Neil Koepke about this a few months ago, and he was asked, when's the last time Michigan State beat Michigan for a recruit? When's the last time Michigan State signed somebody that Michigan wanted? And I think he went all the way back to Brian Lerg out of Livonia, who was on that 2007 national championship team as a senior. So you're going back to 2003. You're talking 20 years. Now, did Michigan want this guy? I'm not sure, but he's in that category. Right now, Michigan's a little bit lame duck right now with what went on with Mel Pearson, who, by the way, seemed like an all-around chump. Collected a lot of talent, never did much with it, but just kind of, if I could say subjectively, seemed kind of like a chump. He looked like, whom I want to talk. I'm not exactly Clark Gable, right? But Mel Pearson always reminded me of Clarence from It's a Wonderful Life. You got that visual now? Remember Clarence? Mel Pearson. Next time you see a picture of him. Might not see any pictures of him for a long time now, though. Anyway, but, Noah Sprunger, he knows his hockey, and he does a great job all around as an intern for us. He posted today over there on the Underground Bunker message board that with Humphreys, Michigan State now has commitments from the number 9, number 38, number 42 players from the 06 birth year class. That's according to Neutral Zone. That's a website that ranks recruits. So they're recruiting at a better clip already. So if you're excited about that, I can see why, and those are good early indications. Adam Nightingale, I think today I looked it up. It's day 105 of the Adam Nightingale era. He's been the coach for just over 100 days. So that's fun. All right, so question number 15, MSU analyst from Atlanta. I think that's my offensive line guy. No, strategic is the offensive line guy. Anyway, MSU analyst says, will this year's Michigan State defensive tackle rotation be better than any in the D'Antonio and Perlis eras? That's a good question for Nils Deco. He'd have the answer on that one. But Jacob Slade and Simeon Barrow, I think they're NFL players. And Jacob Slade is getting a lot of attention now as being underrated because he has been underrated. He ranks real highly with Pro Football Focus and all those metrics. Good, solid player. Good with the pass rush. Good against the run. Just excellent player. Now Simeon Barrow is the most underrated player in the program. Put those two guys together, they're going to have an impact. Maverick Hansen, a real good tag team partner coming off the bench. And the fourth defensive tackle, Jalen Hunt's got a potential. Pilot Light's got a light. And Deshaun Mallory, wait and see what he's all about. But, some of the best guys, like Perlis here. I mean, Perlis had some battlers in there with the old stunt 4-3. I don't know if they're I don't know, though. I mean, I wouldn't put it past Slade and Barrow. I do think it's a pair of NFL guys. So that is pretty good. Better than any in the D'Antonio and Perlis era is the question. I'm not going to say no. I'll have to ask Nils about that. He'll have an answer. Question 16 from Bubba Sparty out of Northville. He says, how big of an upgrade is Tucker in coaching the defensive backs versus Travaris Tillman? Is there reason to expect a Tucker effect in the intensity and fundamentals from that position group this year? Great question, Bubba Sparty out of Northville. And the answer is yes, there will be an upgrade there. And last year, it was not the strongest. So it'll be better there. He says, similarly, how big of an impact do you expect the presence of Brandon Jordan to have in the pass rush this season? Has he been working with the interior defensive linemen in addition to the edge linebackers? Yes, he has been. He's been working with linebackers too. He's the pass rush coach at all those positions. I'm expecting it to be better. And a good one to judge it by would be Pietrowski. He's been a pretty good pass rusher in the past. We know what he is. We've got a baseline on him as observers. So now if he takes it up a notch, you're going to have to assume that Brandon Jordan will have had something to do with that. Can he work more with Chris Bogle and now Brandon Wright taking a step to becoming more and more of a rotation guy? I think it's possible. I don't know the answers, but that's what he was hired to do, and it wouldn't surprise me if that ends up being the case. All right, we got some other leftover questions from last week that I didn't get to. What day is today? It's going to be Tuesday. Maybe I'll save those and go again one more time later in the week. I'll stop here again. We got some leftovers. But we had some questions from Little Joe and Jay Bannon from Sterling Heights and Macklin JB from Rochester and MSU Stodds and Jim from Temecula, California. GD71 has got a basketball question. We'll try to get to those later. Not tonight's show. We're running out of time here quickly. Let's go back over here to the comments area. Appreciate all the support and the questions. Great questions. It's great to talk Michigan State football and basketball with all y'all. Poke Kid 92 says, let's get it. Late night working and this podcast helps me get through it. Good job, Poke Kid. Get your work done. Connor Theo says, give this video a thumbs up. I appreciate that, Connor, and I agree with that. We got one thumbs down. That's not cool. It's all right, though. I appreciate everybody's... I appreciate all opinions. Spartan Marinelli 87 says, I love Spartan Mag. Live, MSU basketball 2023 is going to kill it, he says. Mr. Bowman says, yes, they are going to kill it if Tom can't get his second title now. He never will get it. Well, I don't know about now. I mean, you mean now like in the next 4 years? I think as they build around Jeremy Fears, I think they've got a chance to make a run at something. I think he's special. James Shackern says, Chuck Brantley, breakout sophomore year. He's calling it. Not heard a lot about Brantley yet. He's got some ability, though, and he's a hitter. Just hope he doesn't break himself when he hits. Gordon Tenona says, and Justin White. Justin White's nice. I don't know if he's on scholarship now or not, but he's fast. Nickelback guy. Thanks for the thumbs ups. Thumbs ups. John Elkey's here. A little bit late, John. John Mark says, does anyone know if Barrow and Brown have minor injuries or why they've been out? You know, that's a good question, Brown. Who's Brown? Who's Brown? Brown. I don't know who Brown is. If you throw a common last name at me, I'm not going to know who it is. Chances are I need a first name to go with it. Barrow, but that's good. You know, we've not seen him. And I guess I've not thought about that, but I've not heard anything, but it's not great. Might not mean anything, but it would feel better if he were out there trucking around, right? But we've not seen that yet. Jesse Adams says, even with defensive ends and Brule and Windman playing that position during pass rushing downs on defense, I'm calling it that Darius Snow is going to be second team all Big Ten this year. Book it. Darius Snow is pretty good. Mr. Bowman says, I don't care about any of this stuff. If we can't get off the field on third down, none of this matters. We have to get stops. Once again, Mr. Bowman is correct. Third down defense was terrible last year. That's one of the reasons that Michigan State gave up so many yards to the air. One of the reasons that Angelo Gross and Xavier Henderson played more downs of football than pretty much any player in the country. I think Gross played more defensive downs than anyone in the country. Got to get off the field on third down. No question. Part of that's going to be defensive backfield, same pageness, a little more experience there. Get in favorable down and distance situations, but you're right. Third down. I mean, third and long against Purdue last year were just terrible. John Mark says Barrow is not even in the video showing right now. I'm worried he's injured. Well, if they're not in the video, you know, there might be a little tweak or something like that. I've not heard anything though about Barrow, but you're right. We've not seen him. It's first I've thought about that actually. I've been kind of taking him for granted a little bit. Jesse Adams says hopefully it's long term. We don't need him in the first 2 weeks. We got other guys there that have played already. Spartan Fan 89 says Ben Van Sumeren as a breakout at linebacker on defense would be surprising to me. 3 new linebackers I would think are higher on the depth chart: Winmont, Brule, and Snow. John Mark says Barrow didn't scrimmage and he hasn't been in the last couple practices or so. I didn't hear that about him not scrimmaging, but it wouldn't surprise me. John Mark says the same with Spencer Brown. He's been watching the film closely. Spartan Fan 81 says, it's football. Injuries will happen. Just need them to be minor injuries. George Almeida says, I would not call it unfair for running back expectations. These new running backs need to learn how to do the same. George has some high expectations. I respect that. C.W. Harris says, Ron does a great job. He knows his stuff. I agree with that. CW. Tim Hughes says, hi, Comp, go green from sunny Traverse City, Michigan, one of the great towns in the country. Baukaman says, hey, Comp, what are the top 3 linebacker rooms in the conference, in your opinion? I feel like Michigan State has to be in that conversation. You know, I'd have to look. I'm not going to spend time doing that. I'd have to go over like last year's film and then, you know, look at rosters. I like to it's talking season and we're supposed to talk about these things, but I'm not going to come out and say it's one of the best linebacker rooms in the Big Ten unless I go over the film. I mean, I know I'd have to refresh my memory about what's around the Big Ten and so forth. I mean, that would take me all day to do that. So I don't know. They're going to be much improved. How do they compare? I mean, Wisconsin lost a lot of guys to graduation. They still have that dude from Hawaii who's excellent. Michigan lost Ross. I don't know. They'll be good enough. They'll be better. But I can't. I'm not gonna tell you. I don't have an informed opinion on where they would rank. Among other linebacker classes in the Big Ten. I could just wing it and say they're going to be either first or second or third, but I try not to wing stuff. I almost said a bad word there. Doors fan 91 says, rest in peace, Elvis Presley, 45 years ago today. Do you remember where you were when you heard the news? I do remember. And I was 8 years old, running with a dime in my hand at the bus stop to pick up a paper for my old man. But no, I remember where I was. I was 8 years old, August of 77, just a few days before my birthday. Do the math on that. I was about to turn 9. I was outside, heard about that. My neighbor and good friend, Alvarez, is a big-time Elvis fan. So, you're a little kid, you don't realize how little you are. Alvarez was 2 years older than me. And he and his cousins would do Elvis impersonations. Elvis was a big deal. It was a big freaking deal. And when he died, I called him. And Alvarez just didn't have much to say on the phone. He's like, So I called him. Wasn't a good time to call him. But yeah, it was like in the daytime. I can't remember if I heard it on the, the 5 o'clock news with Bill Bonds out of Detroit or where I heard it, but I remember it being a summer day and calling Alvarez and man, what do you think about this? And that night, Nightline was not on TV yet. That the Ted Koppel Nightline, that stuff didn't start until 1980 with the Iranian hostage crisis. But they had a special after the local news, a little special, probably on ABC, and they did a 30-minute tribute to Elvis type of thing. I watched that with my mom. My mom was from Tennessee, Southern lady from the 50s, and she broke down crying. My mama cried when Elvis died. True story. All right. Dakota Vandentorn says, all the video of practice seems more lax this year. I wouldn't necessarily disagree with that, but I respect your opinion. But also, we have to edit out some of the colorful language sometime. It's not lax. It's high intensity. Trust me on that. And it's quick, especially when they get into team stuff, which we're not allowed to videotape if we're there to watch it. So far this year, we've not been able to see it, but I guarantee when they go team, when they do everything, they're doing it at a quick rate. Vaspy Cam says, go blue. I wonder if Vaspy Cam's the guy that gave us a thumbs down. Nateote seems like he'll have a great shot next year to crack the starting lineup, says Bauchi Main. I would agree with that, and that's a good way to look at it. And he's a good kid, and you hope for the best, and that could be the case. Steve Cross from Millersburg, Michigan, 15 miles from top-rated Lake Huron, MSU Class 85. Way to go, Steve. You're right. Lake Huron, still the number 1 ranked Great Lake in the SpartanMag.com Great Lakes Power Poll. In the power rankings for the Great Lakes, Lake Huron's been number 1 for, I think, 112 weeks. Is Casey Kasem still around? I don't think he is. We call him and ask him if that's a record. I don't know. You guys don't know who that is. Jarqui Yusang says 8-4. Kevin Edmondson from Austin, Texas. Great show. We have 3 guys from Austin that listen frequently. We appreciate that. Robert Willie says number 20 looking pretty good. Number 20, is that what we're talking about? Is that, I get 20 and 30 mixed up. Is 30 Justin White, and the other one's a freshman. Bochi, was it Ade Willie? Yeah. Interesting that Palei Nateote doesn't seem to be in starting consideration at Ohio State, and he's not even close according to our lads' Ohio State depth chart, whatever that's worth. They got good talent there at Ohio State. Bauchiman says, I feel that the fall is very busy with my clients, but I love the work. Not sure what he's talking about there. Brian Cullen says, any info on Brantley? Back 100%? Question mark. Going to see some time? Question mark. Lowry pass him? Question mark. Lowry, passed him last year when he was hurt. Chuck Brantley's had a little bit of the red jersey on. I I'm speaking out of school too much on that. So they're still protecting him a little bit. Bousey Maine says Van Sumeren is a terrific athlete, but I would be surprised if he gets a ton of playing time outside of special teams. You got to think with Brule, Winmon, Halliday, and Snow, it'll be tough. I would agree with that, but I think you might see him in short yardage situations, maybe goal line situations. There'll be some teams that he might match up better against. Running teams, Minnesota, Wisconsin, Michigan, maybe a little bit more. Eric Hanneman, go green from Chicago. I've got Lake Michigan ranked number 1. I respect your opinion. Don Juan says, we got some freshmen with good size at defensive back. Look forward to seeing Caleb Coley, Ade Willie, Malcolm Jones get some reps. I think those guys will dress. And, yeah, I think that I think they feel pretty good about those guys. Streetwise says, hello from Shanghai. Go green. Thank you, Streetwise. Shanghai. Is that in the thumb? I know. Shanghai, China. I know. I get it. Happy Wednesday morning over there. Be safe. Bouchy Maine says, wow, didn't realize Ladarius Jefferson was still at Western Michigan. Lars Corville says, go Tigers. Spartan MD says, greetings from starry West Bloomfield. Is it a starry night out tonight? Nice and clear. I saw some stars over there in Lake Huron a couple weeks ago, man. When you get up this way, it's like the darkest, one of the darkest areas in the lower 48 in the United States of America, because all here's Lake Huron, just dark, 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 dark. And the stars are amazing right there. Michael Borch is listening from Cape Coral, Florida. Thank you, Michael. Spartan MD says, these are great, JC. Appreciate the hard work. Thank you, Spartan MD. Doors Fan 91 says, why no Meet the Spartans this year? Great question. I'm guessing, last year they just opened up a practice, and maybe they felt like they didn't want to let too much information out, maybe. Did other teams have spies there? Probably. But I thought it was a great outreach event. I thought it was great for the fans. Konendijk and I loved it just watching, because that was the first clue that Halliday was going to be the real deal. I don't mean real deal, but like in the starting 11. But yeah, I wish they were going to do it this year. Doesn't look like they are, unfortunately. Kenneth Sawyer, listening from St. Petersburg, Florida. Is MSU going to throw more this year? No more than last year. They'll try to be balanced, and whatever the defense is giving them, whatever's working, they want to be able to do both. So probably not throwing more. Spartan MD says, JC, is Dylan Tatum going to get a lot of playing time? Oh, Dylan Tatum. No. I don't think he's ready. We've talked about this on the board a little bit. He's a good athlete, good feet, good skill, offensive player in high school. But I saw him play last year against Oxford, and on defense, just, not a guy that seeks contact like you need from that safety position. So it's new to him. I don't, someone must have told him somewhere along the line that if he wants to play in the NFL, he's better chance of doing it as a defensive back than a skill position player on offense. That's the only reason I can think that he wanted to be recruited as a defensive back. Michigan State recruited him as a defensive back. They're trying to develop him now. He's still just a true freshman. But he's got a long way to go. 4-star athlete, 4-star recruit, but he's not a 4-star defensive back prospect. As a defensive back prospect, he's a mid 3-star project. As an R.J. Shelton type of offensive player, I think he could be like a 4-star type of prospect over there. But defense has got quick feet. I don't know if he's quite got all the burst of a corner. So you put him at safety. He's got a long way to go. Good kid. He's going to give it everything he's got. But the 4-star thing, he didn't ask to be a 4-star. That's what we ranked him as, people in my profession. I didn't. But I think I'm the only guy that said pump the brakes on him as a defensive back prospect. He's a project. But he's got quick feet. And he's got a great heart. He's got determination. Good kid. I wish him the best. Brad Fashenko says, who returns kickoffs? Good question. Dude, I don't even know. I haven't thought about that. I'm sure some of you have some ideas on that. I don't know. I don't have a good answer for that. Who did it when Speedy was out? When Speedy Naylor was out? Jaden Reed, but I'm not wild about Jaden Reed doing it. Could it be someone like Jeremy Bernard, Montori Foster? I don't think it would be Fitzpatrick or Coleman. Terry Lockett. I don't know. Good question. Michael Borge from Cape Coral, Florida says, do we know what some of the name, image, and likeness deals are for our players? Who has a great deal? I don't know if anyone, a lot of them have little local ones, and you see them on Twitter. Everybody has one with United Wholesale Mortgage, managed by his company. The offensive linemen have a deal with Jolly Pumpkin, it's a downtown bar restaurant. I think Jaden Reed has something, local car dealership type of thing. But I've not seen a lot. I've not seen any billboards around town. I watch a good bit of local television. I've not seen any commercials. So I don't know if there's a lot of that right now. Global Merchant says, why no Montori Foster hype? He was wide receiver number 4 last year. Good point. Conan Dyke pointed that out yesterday in the VCast as well. I've not seen him on the field either. So maybe there's a little bit of tweak going on there, but very observant. Don Juan says, is Jalen Thompson the only recruit we should look to commit to us this month? Looks like Paul Billups is going to North Carolina. I was watching Paul Billups film a little bit last night at wide receiver. He looks pretty darn good. I think he's a 3-star plus. Jalen Thompson, defensive lineman out of Cass Tech. Yeah, Michigan State's in good shape there. I kind of would have expected him to commit a week or so ago, but I think that's going to happen at some point. I think there's a good meshing of interests there. Alex Moore says, who's quarterback number 2? I think it's Noah Kim, but I don't know for sure. But thanks to everybody for playing along and all the questions and all the cooperation and all the contributions. To all of you watching Spartan Mag Live tonight. We'll have another one next week, maybe sooner. We'll see. But in the meantime, go to SpartanMag.com, watch our coverage over there. And videos here at this channel. Give us a thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel. We need subscribers here. And we could always use more subscribers over at SpartanMag.com. We appreciate all the support we get at the news organization that we've created at SpartanMag.com. And the respect that we feel that we hope we've gotten from all of you all out there. Michigan State fans all over the country, all over the world, as we learn tonight and learn every night. Anyway, thanks to everybody. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next time. Go over to SpartanMag.com. We'll see you over there. So long from East Lansing, Michigan. Be good.